Hello, everyone. Today, I am joined by Mr. Mike Webb, the co-founder and CEO of Clockwork. How are you doing today, Mike?
Doing great, Tony. How are you?
Doing great. Also, thanks for asking, man.
Thanks for
So,
having me. Appreciate it.
no, of course, of course. Getting right into things, tell us, what is Clockwork and what does the company do?
Yeah, so Clockwork is a financial planning and analysis platform, or FP&A in short, for specifically built for small and medium-sized businesses, as well as any early stage growth company. And what Clockwork does, we essentially provide a set of tools that allows companies to understand their cash flow and performance better, set and track fully customizable financial goals, and explore different ways to scale and or raise capital.
Interesting. And what problem would you say the company was created to solve? Like, what gap did you see in the market?
Yeah, so for most people, organizing your financials is probably one of the more annoying parts of starting and growing a company, but it's one that we think is absolutely critical. So there's the accounting and bookkeeping piece, which for most companies, they understand that very well, or they've hired either a CPA or use technology to do. But the other half of the finance function is forward-looking, and in our opinion is the most valuable piece. So most companies underinvest in this area because they just don't have a great way of going about it. And the way that most companies do their forecasting today is very outdated. It requires a ton of manual work. Oftentimes, companies keep this work up in Excel spreadsheets that often break, or they're difficult to keep updated on a real-time basis. And it's done in a very siloed fashion. So it's not a collaborative experience for companies that have multiple divisions, multiple pieces of the company that need to work well together, and they just don't talk to each other. So we help companies make sense of all of this, and our software, it plugs into a company's accounting software. So right now we're partnered with Xero and QuickBooks Online. And we update your forecast on a real-time basis by scraping your transactional level data in your accounting system, and create a living, breathing, always updated cash flow and P&L forecast that will tell you exactly where your business is expected to go. So our software runs some light AI to provide a baseline forecast that's, again, automatically updated. But then we also give businesses the ability to create a forecast at a very granular level and embed sales forecasts, staffing forecasts, and other drivers of their business directly in their model. And from our perspective, small and medium-sized businesses, they're typically worried about the sustainability of their cash flow, their margins, their expenses, that type of thing. So we help companies get ahead in many respects in building a more financially stable company. And for high growth early stage companies, they obviously need to control their cash burn and be really good about resource planning as they introduce new features, products, hire new team members, and so on. And we help here too. But every company these days, they're seeing a very uncertain operating environment, and they have to game plan in terms of what they'll do if XYZ happens. And it's important to have this on paper and galvanize their leadership teams to react as fast as things change.
So are you only able to work with companies that have their financials, I guess, recorded in software somewhere?
Yeah, that's right. So again, we're partnered with Xero and QuickBooks, which is really the only prerequisite for using Clockwork. That is the starting point. We are working on other integrations. If you just have a general spreadsheet and it's got some very elementary data that you then want to extrapolate and interact and understand how it translates to your financial results. We do have some of those capabilities. And again, we're building out more of that functionality so that if you're not on Xero or QuickBooks, but for most companies, they are using one of the two. If you're a small or medium-sized business, particularly in the States, there's about 7 or 8 million businesses on both of those platforms. So definitely encouraged if you are serious about standing up your financial infrastructure. That's kind of the first step in recording transactions, just because most early stage companies, even if they haven't started producing revenue, they're incurring expenses, right? And you have to be able to track and understand the trajectory of those expenses as your business scales.
Right. You should have that foundation set already.
Yeah, exactly.
And congratulations on the partnership with QuickBooks. That's a good look.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's obviously they're a behemoth in the small and medium-sized business world of finance. I've actually got a few fun facts from a survey that they did that really highlights just how important forecasting is and helping companies understand where their cash flow is going. So 3 bullet points real quick. So nearly 2/3 of all small business owners report they don't know exactly how much cash comes into their business each month. And even more, over 2/3 aren't completely confident about how much money customers still owe them. So that's a huge problem. And then the next one, 44% of businesses that ran out of cash said that they were surprised when it happened.
Wow.
And then lastly, more than 50% of small and medium-sized businesses with no written budgets saw sales decrease, while 75% of those who had detailed budgets saw their sales increase.
That's interesting. Wow. So can you share some details about the market opportunity that you've identified?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, there's a massive ecosystem globally, not only in the States of small and medium-sized businesses and startups as well. Many companies, if they're not using Excel to really track expenses and plan for the future, they're using back of the envelope math, or just kind of hopes and dreams, as we call it, to make decisions, and that's just not going to cut it forever. So we're out trying to educate all companies, all sizes, all industries, that they should really be taking a measured approach to business planning, whether it be with Clockwork or somewhere else. So again, there's a huge market need for a very, very easy to use, intuitive platform that gives businesses just on demand forecasting, real-time forecasting. A lot of the tools that were available to any companies up until this point were really tailored and built for the enterprise model, right? Big companies that have sophisticated finance functions and teams. But the small and medium-sized business sector has been completely neglected in providing a similar set of tools. But as, of course, technology has advanced and all these accounting systems have opened up their platforms for other companies to plug into their data through APIs, there's this new ecosystem of tools that really serve business owners, the founders, or anyone who's running the finance. And for a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, it tends to be the owners, the operators themselves that are having to run the financials, and that becomes a huge burden for them just because of how much time it really takes to keep all this stuff up to date, accurate, and measurable, right? So we're trying to take that pain away from these businesses, and so far the reception has been really astounding. I mean, we've been in market for about 1.5 years now, and customers absolutely love using our platform. I mean, they're saving so much time and having to update manually their actual financial results, and we again just allow the process of planning to just go so smooth for them. And again, we want to penetrate this market as much as we can, and there's for sure a lot of competition in the space, and there's been some players on the larger end of the market that have done a really good job cracking the enterprise model. And there's the lower end of the market that serves very small companies, owner operated type of companies that provide bits and pieces of the tool, of the platform that we provide. But I would just be wary about using some of those tools, just because accuracy is very important, and there's something to it that you get what you pay for. So
there's that.
Yep, for sure.
So who would you say your target audience or customer is? Who is Clockwork for?
Yeah. So again, the only requirement is that you have Xero or QuickBooks as your accounting software, and it takes literally a minute to set up. So just a little bit more about the product, so I can tell you who's exactly for. But we do import over a company's chart of accounts exactly how it's been set up in your accounting software. So it will be immediately familiar to you. And beyond that, we are industry agnostic, although there are certain industries that are better served using Clockwork. And really, that's just any company who doesn't have a large balance sheet. So we've got a lot of software companies, we've got a lot of professional service companies, we've got wellness and fitness companies, marketing and advertising companies, healthcare companies, and so on. And again, it's we sell to the founders of companies and the people who are running operations, if not directly someone on their finance staff. So again, a lot of times people use Clockwork to delay really building out their finance team because it allows them to leverage technology further into the future. Whereas previously you would need to bring on someone with a pretty high salary to own this entire function.
Right.
And we're just giving the owners themselves the same visibility, and it's on demand, real time. So it's just not a lot of effort that goes into keeping the product, keeping your financials updated. And that's really what people love. So anyone who really just cares about their cash flow, cares about scaling, cares about growth, cares about getting ahead of problems, right? I mean, there's just so many companies that run into cash flow issues down the road. And it's like, looking back on it in hindsight, if they had seen this coming and if they had been prepared and been quicker to make decisions based on trends that they did see, they would be in business now, right? They would be in much better shape. They would be able to, invest back in the business, but instead their cash flow is just suffering. And without, strong cash coffers and strong visibility into your cash flow, you're not really able to make decisions of where you want to invest in your company and how you're going to get it to that next level. So anyone who cares about those things, that's who we serve.
So would you say that you're putting CPAs out of work?
That's a great question. We work really, really well with CPAs. So we partner with, we have a large advisor network who use Clockwork as a format for collaborating with their users. So if you're not, hyper tuned to what's happening in the accounting space overall, they're suffering from lack of resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hiring has been a huge issue for CPA firms, and finding talent that can offer the type of services that is really going to benefit their practice from a margin and revenue perspective. And a lot of what they're trying to do is offer higher value added advisory services that they can work with their clients that they're already doing, tax, accounting, bookkeeping work for, and then transition into providing more, forward-looking advisory services, right? They're the ones who are closest to a lot of businesses' financials already. And the next step in that evolution of creating a very, very sticky client for them is to offer these types of services. And without technology, it's really tough for them to do that. So they do see it as a huge benefit, where then they can go offer better advice, better value at a much cheaper price and serve more clients. So it's a win-win both for the CPAs as well as the ultimate end users, which is the businesses themselves.
Right. And I noticed you had like 3 price points. Would the CPAs be using the enterprise or the higher level, or can they also use like the first level price point?
So yeah, if I understand your question correctly, they can, we offer a couple different pricing packages for CPAs, but if they're not looking to do a full implementation and activation across, their entire couple hundred or couple thousand client base, we can work with them to offer just discounted packages off of the retail sticker price, really. And depending on how many clients that they're looking to onboard, we do offer a discounted price compared to what a company would have to just pay right off our website. So if there's businesses that are out there that are, they're already working with the CPA, excuse me, it's a great way for them to introduce Clockwork to their advisors and get a really nice discount going directly to the CPA versus going directly to us.
Gotcha. And you've been in business for about a couple of years now, and
Yep.
you've already raised is it $2 million the most recently. Congratulations on that, first of
Thank
all.
you.
Wanted to ask, what was that fundraising process? How's that been from inception to, kind of like where you are now?
Yeah, no, thank you. It was a huge challenge. It was a huge challenge. It took a lot longer than we would have liked it to take, for sure. And honestly, part of that is as first-time founders who are catching their stride, they're feeling good about the direction of the business. It is apparent to us in terms of what the opportunity is, and obviously it's our responsibility to convince investors that they see the same things that we see. So maybe it was us being a little naive in the beginning of the process and thinking that it was going to be faster, easier, and just a much more smooth process. But it was tough. It was tough. I mean, we talked to over 100 funds, I think.
Wow.
So that's a lot of no's, and they start to add up, right? And you just have to approach it from an angle of, they're fiduciaries of their own capital. It's not personal. It's just a fit thing, right? And I think we're in a pretty interesting industry in that, again, I was saying earlier, like there's not a lot, but a handful of very large, well-established players that have conquered the more enterprise level market that offer, planning services for truly large companies, big companies. A lot of them are public companies. And then there's a handful of competitors that have been around, a little bit longer than us, with respectable client bases that are serving the lower end of the market. And then there's this gap in the middle of the market that really hasn't been conquered by anyone, and no one has really good market share. So there's been an influx of companies in the last couple of years that have started going after this segment of the market. There's been a lot of fundraising that's taken place. We've seen a handful of acquisitions that have come through already this year. So there's a tremendous amount of interest in the space, but from an investor perspective, it really took for us, stumbling across an investor that just knew the space really well, understood our competitive advantage of being really easy and intuitive to use, which outweighs the complexity that many of our competitors have built their products upon, because many of them felt it was necessary to offer everything under the sun to give users, a perceived higher level of precision in their forecasting methods. But for us, it's really not about that. And for most companies, it's not about that. They just need better ways to see around the corner and reduce the time that they spend on these activities and free their time up to actually make the moves they need to make to hit the goals that they want to hit. So for a lot of these reasons, it was tough, and it took a special investor to see what we saw and be comfortable with the way that our go-to-market strategy was structured and to make a bet.
That's great. And how do you plan on deploying the capital that's been raised?
Yeah, so up until the fundraise, we had a pretty lean team of 5 people. So since we closed our round in early February, we've doubled in size, and we've hired on the engineering team. We've hired on sales and marketing, as well as customer success. And we're loving where our product is right now. But with that said, our roadmap is just it's a beast. I mean, there's so much more we want to do with the platform. We want to find all sorts of ways to add more value for our users. So it's really just executing on the roadmap, strengthening our ties to our channel partners, and really just proving to the market that our product is the best for the segment that we're going after. And, if we do those things, and I think, it's for sure ours for the taking.
Right. And what would you say are some of your 5-year goals?
Yeah, from a platform perspective, we want to be the one platform companies think about and use to leverage every piece of company data to understand their performance better, understand their potential better, and understand their industry better. So it's, a mix of more integrations, more advanced tool sets, more partnerships, anything we can do to serve our customers better. That's really where we see our platform evolving to. And, from a company perspective, we're blessed to have a visionary and highly ambitious CEO in 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐤𝐤, who has his eyes set on IPOing the company in the next 5 to 7 years. We're just at the beginning of that journey, and it's going to take a lot of hard work, but fortunately we've got an incredibly strong team that has a lot of direct experience in the space prior to coming over to Clockwork, and they've fully bought into the mission. So we want to make this a very successful endeavor and help a lot of companies along the way. For us, it's a win-win. It's not just about the sales for us. It's really changing the lives of our customers and making sure that they've got the tool sets and the confidence to really grow their business as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And lastly, what advice do you have for other SaaS founders that are interested in raising capital? Because clearly one of the big challenges is, getting people to invest in your business. You just explained that it took about 100 meetings to find the investment that you did now. What advice do you have for others to kind of shorten that process if possible?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would say understand your company's strengths really well. There's some companies that can raise just based on the sector or the market that they're going after if it's, a hot market. Some companies can raise based on their technology. Some companies can raise based on their traction, however they define it. So whatever those strengths of your company are, you just have to lean into it and just use that as the wedge to really drive conversations and get investors to buy into them seeing your company becoming a much larger company in the future, right? That's ultimately what it's about. And if they've got the confidence in your team's ability to execute, then it should just be a much easier process. But even still, again, I mentioned it earlier, like finding investors that have experience working in the space that you're in, the ultimate end industry or the business model itself. SaaS companies have multiple different business models, and there's a lot of ways to build a company on a subscription basis, but you just have to find investors that just get it, right? That they see what you're trying to build. They understand how the company will evolve and what its moat might develop into. Obviously, the founders have to have a good vision of how to take the company there. But it's just really about aligning yourself with investors who are quicker to get up to speed in terms of what your company is doing. Right. With that said, like a lot of the conversations that we still had with generalist investors, they were still good conversations. I mean, a lot of times, like we went into those conversations not expecting to get a good result out of it, but a lot of times, whether it be the feedback or potential introductions, sometimes you just have to take those meetings and you never know what it could kind of turn into. Yeah. But you just have to be persistent. I mean, that's the biggest thing. You have to be persistent. You have to be organized from a legal, operations, financial perspective, so that if you are moving to diligence beyond just the first meeting or two with the firm's leaders, like you have to be able to respond really quickly to those requests and just have everything organized, right? Have everything up to date in terms of all of your company data. And, if someone has a diligence request and you can respond in a day or two with everything that they need, I mean, they know you're ready to raise capital, right? And I think that's half the battle is funds really knowing and trusting that you are ready to do this, because it's a heavy lift, and you know, the closing process is just, it could be very lengthy, and yeah, it just takes a ton of effort. So the more organized you are, it's just going to make things a lot easier for you. And I guess my last point is just be quick to follow up to people and be nice along the way. Even if they say no, just because, again, you never know when they might mention your company or you in conversations with someone else. And it's a close knit community that you have to be mindful of, not to burn any, you know, reputation or anything.
Right. And sometimes I guess it also boils down to timing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Timing is a huge thing. I mean, for sure, budget the right amount of time and have contingencies in place, right? I mean, for us, it was tough because we again had a team of 5 people, so we're carrying a pretty heavy payroll, and the process took months longer than we thought it was going to take. So, you know, fortunately, me and the CEO, the 2 founders of the business, you know, we were able to scrap together enough cash just to keep the lights on, right? And just to keep things moving, not having to lay people off or ask people to, you know, take pay reductions or anything like that. It for sure put us in a very difficult, you know, personal financial situation, but it's just something that we had to do because it took longer than we thought it was going to take. So it's a tough game, man. It's a tough game, and you just have to be all in. Otherwise, you're never going to get there.
Yes, sir. No, that's great insight. And hey, look, you went through all that. You're here now, and you know, wish you and your team the best success going forward.
Great. Thanks, Tony. Appreciate your time today.
No problem at all. Have a great day, Mike.
You too.